We boast of our talent, our passion that we have on the continent, but for some reason we have not been able to develop the game to an extent where it creates the right opportunities, especially for our young people.
African football has a lot of talent. In most of our national teams or clubs, yes, we don't have youth teams. And these are normally the build-up and the basics to have a good transition. It's very important that we develop the domestic leagues, minimum salary wages, and we need to also have a better coaching education, because you can have the best talent, but if they don't have good coaching, it will be difficult.
What does player development looks like in Egypt? In our academy, we look at it comprehensively. Because we've got the college, we provide the education, but we also provide the necessities for those talented kids to be able to be exposed for, mental stamina, psychological assessments, nutrition, things along the line of discipline.
How is that different in Chile, South America?
I think that somewhere in a way, most of the clubs have lost the track in the sense of, first, you're not a football player, you're a person, you're a kid. And the main mission of the club in this case, given that the kids do invest, so to speak, so much time throughout their infancy and adolescence, for this club is to have an education in return. Not necessarily, at least, an academic education, but also learn values and how to behave, so that tomorrow, when you're a member of the society, you can behave accordingly.
In our system, I think there is a gap. We don't have the kind of academies that kind of groom the young players to understand the extent of professionalism required in football, so that you can maybe reach the greatest heights.
What can Africa do really to benefit from the football transfer market?
Maybe it's not that much for the transfer fee, but let's put the example of a player from Morocco, a player from Algeria, and we all know the big names that now are around the world of football, like the likes of Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane, Keita, Pepe, Aubameyang, all these great African players. Of course, maybe the clubs which trained them, they didn't receive a transfer fee at the beginning, but now when those players are transferred around Europe, those African clubs that trained the player when the player was young, they are entitled to receive a portion of that amount of the transfer fee. So I think we not only need to focus on the transfer fee themselves, but also on other rewards that clubs that train players can receive in the future. I think that's one thing. The other thing, of course, is to create the interest in African football, and for that, I think personally that CAF is doing a great job. I think the idea needs to be to create more competitions, to be more visible, to have more broadcasters.
I have the pleasure of hosting three excellent gentlemen to talk about sustainable football communities in Africa. What's your view of sustainability in terms of running Akakoro Football Academy?
It's one of the biggest questions that we ask ourselves in our day-to-day operations, because we are mainly funded through Austrian donors, and we want to change that in the future. And what we came up was the strategy of combining commercial activities in a social business unit, where we train kids, where we share our knowledge that we gained in the past 9 years with the middle class, upper class, so that we can sustain our social activities. But the big thing is, again, education. What we try to do in the next years is to have our own school, where we then can also run our business model, but develop not only good football players, but very intelligent people that can make it anywhere in the world.
When we started the Starfield Elite Development Academy, started a pay-to-play model. When you're running a football club at a high level in this country, you're always agonizing over expenses at the end of the month. Paying coaches, paying for your facilities, buying equipment. The pay-to-play model takes care of a lot of that. You set your fees based on your expenses, based on a profit margin that you want to make. By so doing, it means then that we are looking at sustainability. It doesn't mean that all the kids who are at Starfield are paying players. We are picking up kids who are very talented and who we are giving scholarships. But again, the cost of this scholarship has also been factored in by the paying players.
Coming to you, Chris Amimo, Ligi Ndogo, when you talk about sustainability, how have you managed to keep it running for this long?
Now, the model, and why I began Ligi Ndogo also is because for a long time I've been doing work for corporates, sponsored events. But at some point I was doing an event for Coca-Cola, and they had done it for about 3-4 years, and they got new management, and they just dropped it and went into totally different direction. So I told myself, look, I need to do something that will not be dependent on the whims of a sponsor. Something that can run itself, so that if the sponsor pulls out, it's not the end of the idea. And that's how it grew, and it became, you charge people, you employ coaches. Now, I can't count how many pay-to-play academies are there in Kenya. They are, I don't know the numbers, but they are in the hundreds, maybe even over 1,000.